energy efficiency and sustainability has become an absolutely central keystone issue. We look at this both from the perspective of how telcos can decarbonize, as well as help other industries decarbonize. But within that whole question, one of the biggest things we wanted to do is track progress objectively. It's great to hear a lot of companies on show here, including our panelists, talk about the innovation that they're engineering to get towards net zero. But we need a benchmark. We need a marker of progress. And that's what we're going to introduce to you today with this project, which is called our Telco Energy Benchmark. Just as context, this is the third year please come on in. We have done this project. I'll talk about the details in a minute, but it's growing every year. And what we wanted to do with this event was give it more visibility at MWC, the biggest event of the year, because we know this is such a critical issue. So I'm going to spend about 10 minutes or so running through how the project works and, more importantly, some of the key findings this year. We're then going to have a panel of leading vendors and operators to speak about the issues from their perspective. And then finally, we're going to have a short panel around the value of benchmarks more broadly, not just with energy, but in the context of tracking progress. So the road to net zero, when we talk about net zero, I think it's important to first just contextualize where we're at in terms of overall commitments. And you can see it on this slide here. This is we've reached around over half of the telco sector committing to net zero. Many are on the science-based targets initiatives. And the level of progression is increasing every year. We do still see some geographic gaps, particularly in the global south and east, but there is good progress being made. So that's a positive sign because it shows there's commitment. The challenge that really one of the main challenges that we look at here is how you square the continually rising profile of data traffic in the 5G era with reducing your energy consumption and, of course, your carbon emissions. When we talk about getting to net zero, there are two aspects of doing that. There's getting energy efficiency improved, and there's cutting out your emissions. In other words, getting towards renewables. We forecast traffic is going to go up 6x between now and the end of the decade. And there's a number of drivers for that. AI will probably continue to have a mixed effect on that profile. Whichever way you look at it, it's going up. And so there's pressure on the network. When we think about how to get energy down, it's a holistic challenge. We're here talking about energy efficiency. That's one of the most important dimensions. But you can't forget about retiring legacy generations. 2G and 3G equipment is much more energy inefficient than LTE and 5G. That's important to take advantage of. Of course, the shift to renewable is the other side of the same coin. So we want to view this as a holistic challenge. It's a systemic, all-of-company operation. You might have heard Tim Hotjes from Deutsche Telekom making the same point about Gen AI. It's not an IT issue, it's not a tech issue, it's a company issue. What's your strategy? It's the same thing here. And so when we first thought about this question about how to measure it 3 years ago, we thought, well, what better way to do that than to get data from the horse's mouth, as it were. And so what we've done is set up a tracking project where we work with mobile operators across the world to ingest their network energy data confidentially so that we can aggregate it to produce an industry-level view of whether progress is getting better or worse, and most importantly, why that is happening. So this year, we had 17 telcos participate. Within that 17 telcos, they spanned almost 60 countries, 65 different networks within the portfolio. And so we're coming around 20% of the global market share. You can see the geographic profile of that on the map here. Our goal is to continually expand that. Please come in. Why do we want to expand it? Well, because the bigger the data set we have, the more representative it is of true progress. So we want to encourage more operators to join with us as we run the project this year. And we, as Manuel will talk about this in the panel, a lot of the work goes beyond just the data analysis and the report we publish in this. It's also a forum for best practice, where you can come and hear the experiences of other telcos, of other vendors, what has worked, perhaps more importantly, what hasn't, and how to structure your own network strategy for the future. Just showing the list of partners, and I think what's been great about this is that the operators we've had participate this year do span a really wide geographic coverage. The engagement has been very, very strong, and I'm hoping that we can bring examples of that through this session. So this is, again, continually expanding, and we would really like to have your participation this year. So please get in touch with us on that. When I talk about the methodology here, there is no silver bullet. I'm going to come to the results on the next slide, but really when we think about energy efficiency, you've got to look at different metrics, because a lot of people say, well, how do we track one single metric to tell us if we're getting better or worse? The truth is, there is no one single metric. We have, and for that reason, we have multiple metrics in the toolbox. Our core yield is the kilowatt hours of energy per gigabyte of data transferred. We think that's most comparable across companies, but we buttress that by including others. The same energy usage per mobile cell site, per subscriber, per unit of revenue, and we make a number of adjustments in the methodology so that everybody is being compared like with like. It's very hard to compare, for example, a network in Canada, where I'm from, cold country, lots of snow, to somewhere in the UAE, in a desert. You have a completely different climate profile, a completely different set of cooling requirements. It's not fair to say one is more energy efficient than the other without making adjustments, so we do that. So what does it look like in terms of where we get to? Well, here's the sort of histogram view of the results this year. And I'll go away from the mic just for a minute so I can explain this chart. This is showing you the anonymized version of all the networks that participated in this study this year. So 2 points to make. One is that the average kilowatt hour per gigabyte is, we measured it at 0.15 kilowatt hours per gigabyte of data. There is quite a range within that, but around 3/4 of the operator fit within the 0.1 to 0.5. Can we explain the outliers? Yes, there are reasons for that. I think Emmanuel can touch on those in the panel. I won't get into too much detail. But most importantly, that progress is getting better. So 2 years ago, that 0.15 was 0.24. Last year, it was 0.17. And now it's 0.15. Okay, so that is the networks, the operators are getting better with energy efficiency. That's a good, positive story to start. What else do we look at? Well, we look at where energy is being used in the network. If you look at an average mobile network, there are major components. The radio access network takes about 75% of the energy. Some are higher, some go up to about 85, some are lower, about 70. You then have the data centers that are controlled by the operators, that core network, about 20%, and then the rest splits between fleet, property, and other ancillary functions. Now, again, I think the important thing we want to take away here, of course, we're only showing industry data, we're not showing company data. We don't ever disclose company data, of course, in a public forum. We want to track this over time and understand why the splits are changing. And when we look at the radio network, we actually see a lot of innovation coming in through AI, a lot of sleep states, a lot of power down, a lot of better dynamic energy usage. We're looking at virtual power and frequency redistribution, not to get too technical, but there are a lot of ways to optimize that. So there's good progress here, but getting your compute architecture is really important, okay? This is really key as we go to cloud native architectures, really key to have your compute plans set up. I've talked about the overall energy efficiency. I've talked about where energy is used in the network. We also look at the types of fuel being used. I see a lot of people are taking pictures. You're more than welcome to do that. We will send this out afterwards. There are slides. We published a report yesterday, so this is all available. Right now, between this, again, the vast majority of energy is still drawn from the grid, just over 70%. You have renewables about 20% and diesel at 6%. Now, that is a global picture, okay? Two things to make that this chart doesn't show. One, the renewables figure has doubled. Last year it was 10%, this year it's 20%. So renewables are becoming a higher share of the mix. In Europe, which is the leading region, that renewables figure is double that. So if you look at Vodafone, if you look at Telefonica, if you look at Orange, a number of other sort of large operators, pan-European operators, they are targeting 100% renewable usage if they haven't already got there. So this profile is improving. There is geographic variation. Diesel is a rump. That actually accounts for an outsized proportion of emissions for some operators in their Middle East and Africa markets, for reasons I won't go into. But this is a profile we really want to track. Couple more slides before we get to our panel. So passive infrastructure. This is something we introduced this year that we hadn't done before to understand where that is being drawn from. So by passive infrastructure, we mean anything that isn't directly part of the radio access network. So that's cooling, that's site-related power. And you can see here that the actual sort of key takeaway is that this is still a big share of power draw for many more operators than we expected. So this is shares, again, the chart on the bottom shows you the share of the participating operators in this project, and this vertically shows you what share of their energy is drawn from passive. So you can see down here, it's about 20 to 30%. That's a really high draw. That's a really high draw. For something where there's a lot of work going on to work in cooler climates, to have liquid cooling systems. I'm sure our panelists will speak to this. That's a really high draw, though. And it's something we really want to target, and an insight I don't think we would necessarily have been aware of on a global scale if we didn't run this type of aggregated analysis. Okay. Last slide here, which is really talking about the 5G impact. Now, people often ask the question, does 5G make energy efficiency better or worse? Well, the short answer is it makes it better. Why? Because it's more spectrally efficient. It's about 90% more spectrally efficient than LTE, to be precise. However, it doesn't quite work like that in practice. And the reason is that 5G doesn't exist in a silo. It exists with a whole network. If you're running 50% of your sites on 5G, you've still got the other 50% drawing power at a different energy efficiency ratio. And so what we wanted to do here is ask the operators who participated in this what their expectations were for 5G on a short-term and a long-term basis. So this isn't actual data from the network. This is sentiment indicator. And you actually get some pretty interesting findings. So you look at, in the short term, why is everybody saying it's less efficient? Are we going against the laws of physics? No, it's because of what I just said. It's a whole of network issue. You've got to balance that with the 3G power you're being drawn and the LTE power and some of the fiber in there, still contributing in the transport layer. So we're at the point where it's more spectrally efficient, but it's not yet showing up in the overall numbers, or not materially enough to affect the trajectory. On the other hand, if you look at the long term, the situation's reversed. So what does this tell us? That as 5G infrastructure scales in the base, and as we put through the innovations needed to get energy efficiency improved, we should see really good progress. But it also reinforces the fact that time is limited. this action is really important to stay on course for net zero targets at the 2030 checkpoint. All right. So as we head to 2024, I hope that's given you a good sample of the findings. We're going to get to our panel. Any participating operators in this get a full benchmark report showing all of their networks' performance against each other as well as against regional and global averages. There's a public report that we published yesterday and that we're talking about, some of those findings came from. But most importantly, the community and the knowledge sharing, the best practice. I really come back to that because that, having run 4 workshops this year, we can see the level of collaboration and discussion. This is an industry problem. It's not a company problem. Energy is still around 20% of the OPEX cost for an average telco. Everybody has an interest in getting that down. Everybody has an interest in getting to net zero. So we've really seen a lot of progress there, and we want to continue that. Okay, so I'm going to transition to our panel and introduce Emmanuel, who is our project leader here, Francesca Sartori from Nokia, Noelle Lopez from Ericsson, Yildiray Orhan-Kelly from Turkcell, and Johannes Bielin from Telenor. So please help me welcome them up.
Hello, good morning, everyone. It's great to see that we could turn up in that many numbers in that far end of the event. So thanks again for joining. Special thank you for Tim for the presentation. And in the next half an hour, we're going to discuss what we could hear before and the main highlights of the report and how operators and vendors think about energy efficiency at 2024. So I think we have a unique opportunity with 2 vendors and 2 operators here to discuss energy efficiency. And I would like to ask our panelists to very quickly introduce themselves, where they come from and what are they doing in their organization. Francesca?
Okay. It's working? Yes. Okay. Okay. Thanks so much for being here. My name is Francesca Sartori. I'm Italian, as you can imagine. I'm leading the research and standardization team for sustainability in Nokia. Thanks so much.
Hi, good morning. My name is Noelia Lopez. I'm Spanish. And I'm the Sustainability and AI Marketing Director in Ericsson. So these 2 topics are really linked.
Hello, I'm Johannes from Telenor Group Research and Innovation Unit. So I work on the analytics and AI side of squeezing more energy efficiency out of our networks.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Yildiray. I am from Turkey, and I have been working in Turkcell. And my current position is Access Network Infrastructure Associate Director, and I am responsible for all energy efficiency efforts for our networks.
Thank you. So as you know, we just launched the report this morning, and this report has a lot of insightful data points about energy consumption and energy efficiency. And I would like to ask our panelists, which data point from the report surprised you the most? And just let me know, what did you find the most insightful or you like the most?
Still me?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, let's say it's a kind of confirmation of what we've been discussing the last couple of years. So that is clear. What captured my attention was the 0.15 kilowatt per hour for 1 gigabyte transmission. That was not so visible for me. So I did a little bit of homework, right, to prepare this panel. And I said, okay, 15 kilowatt, what does it mean? So it's not in currency, or what does it mean? So, okay, but okay, means that the 100 giga, it's 1.5 kilowatt. Okay, washing machine. But okay, let's see how much washing machine consume. One complete cycle is between 1.2, 1.5 kilowatt. But okay, so downloading Avatar 4K, that is more or less 100 gigabyte, it's like a washing machine complete cycle. So now, every time I'm going to download something, I wash, okay, how many dishes I've been washing? downloading something. That was very interesting, and that is where it's missing, the visualization on how much does it mean for a normal person that is familiar with all these numbers in practice, right, in the real life. That was interesting for me.
Thanks, Francesca.
To me, the most interesting, surprising data was the one that Steve was commenting about why 5G is not accepted. I mean, in the short term, the operators, they don't see as the most energy efficient technology. Well, while we know that it has more spectral efficiency, we can transmit more data in less time, meaning that we can reduce the energy consumption. We have less signaling. We see that it's more efficient, but I came kind of the same conclusion to Tim, because at the end, you need to modernize. If you are more equipment, you cannot expect, if you are adding a new radio, to reduce the overall energy consumption. But the key here is to modernize. It's not only to refarming the spectrum and transmitting more in 5G. You need to consolidate, and this is possible today. So we are doing this already with our customers. We can replace the existing equipment supporting 4G with, while introducing 5G and expanding 5G. We can improve capacity, but at the same time reducing the radio footprint. We have done this with customers, reducing up to 50% the radio footprint and even the energy consumption. And at the same time, reducing the embodied carbon emissions, because what we need are lighter radios. He was commenting also about the carbon emissions. And we need to tackle, when we are using renewables, the next step to take is to look at the embodied carbon emissions of the products. So, but the technology is today, so the recommendation really is to consolidate the sites and to modernize with the latest equipment to support all the frequency bands.
Yeah, I'm a data guy, so actually I was very surprised that you managed to get hold of an impressive amount of data and standardize it from all, I believe it was 20% of the global connections that you managed to get hold of.
We cover 1.6 billion connections globally in this report, which is not fully representative, but...
Yeah, and knowing just internally in Telenor how hard it is to get data, that's very impressive. And to the number, I also, this kind of most easily understandable, the yield, the kilowatt hour per gigabyte was, I haven't seen it like that before, and it was surprisingly high, I think. So, yeah, so also the good comparison with the washing machine, and I should start thinking about that when I download stuff.
From my point of view, one of my duties preparing my CTO's key performance indicators. And when energy popped up 3 years ago in our network, when our electricity cost tripled during a very short period of time, and we established a program making energy savings in our network. And first indicator was calculating energy consumption saving as kilowatt hour. And I remember, and we achieved remarkable results, which is approximately 62 gigawatt hour annual savings with our efforts like simplification, modernization, AI based application, etc., etc. Then I visited Mobile World Congress, and with the motto, more bits, less watts. And then we started to use KPIs previous year as kilowatt hour per gigabyte. Now this year, at the beginning of the year, we are still searching for new KPIs, because my CTO said that one KPI is not enough. And so this report pop up some other indicators. So it became very helpful for me, and the most important data, the key indicators that I can use for my scorecards, besides kilowatt hour per gigabyte.
Great. And it's good to see that you're using so many metrics to measure energy efficiency. And probably the telecom sector is in a unique position when we are measuring energy efficiency, because we don't have like one single metrics as we mentioned before, unlike the automotive industry, using the same metrics. How much petrol do you need or diesel to go 100 kilometers or miles? In the telecom sector, the output of the industry is constantly changing, from SMS to voice to data, now private networks and cloud services. So I think we don't have, in the report, you can see that we don't have one single metric to quote, and probably we will not have in the future either one single metric here. But how do you propose to measure energy efficiency in telecoms? Do you have a recommendation or a unique method what you're using to measure energy efficiency in your organization?
Okay, I think one key metric is the user experience, because at the end what we need is networks that are more flexible, are not static, they are adapted to at the end the final user and not at network level. So we need this flexibility, adjust the resources to the user to create the good experience. And we need an evolution from mobile, from best effort, that is what we have today, to differentiated connectivity. And in this evolution to high programmable networks, we will need to secure, I mean, when we want to use augmented reality service or other type of service that has requirements of latency, bandwidth, we need to secure that. But we don't want to waste resources. We cannot afford to waste that. So we need to be able to set up a target, observe the network, and be able to adjust. So we need this evolution. We need the evolution, including the metric of the user experience, but we also need the networks to evolve to be able to measure that and to adapt to that.
Well, it's one of the hottest topics that we have in the standardization. We are working, because standardization, we have the KPIs, the performance-based, right? KPI, P, the famous P. But for energy consumption, efficiency, carbon is not really the right metrics. So there is a huge effort nowadays, and Nokia is contributing a lot, in particular in ITUT, where we are redesigning the metrics and the methodology to measure unified, globally speaking, the energy consumption, energy usage, exactly, in a different traffic model. Because if you have an empty load, think about a stadium during the week. There is no one there. And during the weekend, it's a completely different scenario. So you need to have a very flexible, agile network that is able to be predicting the traffic and then, therefore, assign the resources without impacting the performances. Because it will be easy to consume less. Switch off easily, right? But you don't want this. Your customer will be very, very upset.
I want, sorry, I interrupt you. I really want, because I am responsible from infrastructure domain, but we need a horizontal approach, which covers RAN domain, TN domains, because from infrastructure point of view, I can cut everything. No problem. Yes.
But then your CEO is not happy.
My CTO, but besides that, there are different domains, and my other colleagues stop me doing that. This is the problem, as Noelle mentioned. And we need we need to make a regression analysis, combine different vertical domains indicators together to create a more effective and efficient measurement and standardizations.
Correct.
As operator, I totally say that we need help how to do it.
Yes. We are absolutely working on that.
Yeah, I can comment on cutting off everything, and we try to not cut everything, but we use AI to see what can we cut without impacting the customer too much. And that is a dilemma. I talked to several telcos about this, that they are doing a similar experience. They try to cut radios to save energy. But then you have also the marketing side focusing on the highest throughput, and you have this speed test running. So customers are getting used to having 500 megabit per second.
Absolutely.
So what we actually have seen is there's a conflict on the products we sell, focusing on throughput, peak throughputs, is not really compatible with the aggressive energy efficiency. So that's kind of a dilemma that we could benefit from talking, you know, as an industry to see what we can do.
I fully agree. I think we need to redefine what is the best network, right? So it's not the peak throughput, it's the more performing, energy performing, and the best for the user. So we need to redefine the network really. How
I think you mentioned in the report somewhere that, you know, energy efficiency without impacting the customer, but to be truly energy efficiency, at least with today's technology, you cannot have this overcapacity basically that we need to perform in the speed tests. So if we can have like consistent quality, come up with better metrics on to communicate to the customer, that would be great.
Can I also challenge you? So we are talking to improve the current base station on the evolution base station, but we are still in the linear economy. We produce, use, and then throw away. So we need to also combine, not only looking at this piece, it's just the hip of the iceberg, right? We should combine the energy efficiency, energy consumption within the circular economy. So thinking even different business model. Why not network sharing? Why is not working for you so well? Or my line manager or my boss will be not happy because network sharing will be less. But we need to find alternative way to make business, to keep our customer, our final customer happy with an even disruptive mindset. That doesn't necessarily mean to be a new technology per se, but could be also considering the overall value chain, even a different business model, different traffic model, different way to make business. And think about, we are talking about the next generation coming, is the digital native. They do not own, they don't have the owns mindset. They share mindset. My daughters never ask, I want to have a new car, buy me a car. She said, I don't care. I share, I use the bus transportation. They have different values. These are the future that are going to use our network. And we need to adjust even to that future.
Thank you. It's so good to see these organic conversations. The next topic will be, and the next question from mine, that we have two vendors here, top vendors, and two operators with a relatively big footprint. What is your biggest achievement to improve energy efficiency, or your solutions you would like to highlight, and you think it can improve energy efficiency of operators the most? So it's just what area topic does it relate to?
Okay, I can start first. When I summarize our energy efficiency efforts from two different perspectives. First one is energy efficiency, and the second one is, from our point of view, reducing energy fee cost for our operator, because it is a huge headache for us in terms of OPEX management, OPEX cost management. And we are making huge investment for solar farms and green sites, alternative energy resources, to reduce our energy cost. And we have a plan to implement within 3 years 300 megawatt solar farms. And beside that, our green sites came up to 1,400. We will implement 1,000 more. This is one part for with the help of alternative solutions, and our regulative authorities support us with new regulations issued in my country. And I say that we are lucky as an operator in this industry, and our board of directors also support us in terms of investment requirements. And when we come to the second part, energy modernizations, as I said in the beginning, with the cost of energy, we showed an immediate response as with agile actions, modernization, AI-based softwares, parameter optimization, etc., from different domains, and we stopped increasing energy consumption. And when I see in this Mobile World Congress now, we start talking about simplification, modernization, and standardizations efforts, because we need a benchmark. We need reference point, as you said. 0.15 kilowatts. Is it a real reference? What should it be? And what other efforts for network efficiency I should do? Because I put a reflex to do something to decrease the cost. But from this point, we need to synchronize globally, as in this industry, our efforts, our reference point, our standardization, our certifications. We need to share here more knowledge and more our best practices to come a point together and to make take better results, in my opinion.
Yeah, and for what I'm doing is data and algorithms, and I think one of the biggest achievements was a few years ago when AI wasn't as hyped as now, but we started looking into using data and algorithms to improve this power efficiency, and we saw that we easily could double the kind of the effect of some of the features that the vendor had. So that was kind of a moment where we realized this is something to look into, and now I'm leading a big initiative from Telenor side that we work closely with the vendor to see if we can embed this kind of smartness more into the equipment we have. So just that realization to actually use algorithms and data, it can help us saving power. That for me was very motivating.
Yeah. And this is a good point, because the service providers are afraid to activate the energy saving features because that can impact the KPIs, that can impact the user. So we need this automation, and we need this closed-loop automation, I would say 24/7, because otherwise we are stuck with the maintenance window in the nights only to activate the energy-saving features, because that is a period of time that is safe to activate them, right? So we need these automations that are smart to measure, as I was saying before, the user experience, the real time to adapt and to apply the best energy saving feature that for depending on the traffic demand, because this is not like full functioning or not functioning at all. We need granularity to activate and deactivate the radio resources. This way is the best way to really be flexible and adapting to the needs. So that is what we are also doing at Ericsson. We are working this functionality. We just launched one in Mobile World Congress, but the idea here is working on this automation to adjust to the real-time demand. And sorry, I want a very short additional is we are the service providers are fully committed to net zero, to reducing the energy consumption. So we are in our collaborations already today. We see how you can reduce 29% the cost, the energy consumption per gigabyte with all the programs, the new technology innovations. So this is your achievement, this is industry achievement, but I think we are going in the right direction there.
Absolutely, yes. And on top of this, on top of the flexibility, we can also be predicting what is going to happen, because the flexibility is answering to the existing situation. So I don't have traffic, so I will switch on or switch off partially a portion of the different power amplifier, right? I can do from full functioning to completely switch off in 8 stage. Okay, but then I need to also be able to predict what is going to happen in the next days, in the days afterwards, in next week, because there are patterns, and the AI can help you because it can predict, can have a forecast on what is going to happen based on the pattern. So using exactly the existing technology, software and hardware, the modernization, the services, and all the future technology, you can really go shut down, not completely dead, but completely in deep sleep with less 20 watt per base station. Really, even today, you can go to our booth, you can see it. So it's really possible. It's not over the night. It's a holistic exercise from network planning, new modernization, investment, technology, standardization, you name it. And it is a sector problem. And the ICT is a little bit weak from this perspective, and standardization at least point of view.
I just comment on that, because I think we need to work closer together, because you have the equipment, you make the functionality, but we have the customers and measure the impact. You need us kind of. So I think we can move faster if we kind of build a culture of working closer together, also in the research and kind of development phase.
You know where we are now.
So thank you so much for the conversation, but unfortunately we're running out of time. And I'm sure we're going to continue some level, and that wasn't the last one in this topic. So I would like to say thank you again for our participants. To sum up in one sentence, I think energy management is an extremely data-intensive area, and you need to measure and use artificial intelligence to make decisions to be efficient and make real-time decisions to improve energy efficiency. So thank you so much again for our participants. And the next session will be Team Hat and two partners from McKinsey. So welcome on the stage. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you so much.
So we're going to round out this session with two folks from McKinsey. So Ferry and Nemanja are going to come up, and we're going to have a short conversation about benchmarks at a higher level. So guys, come on up, please. We're going to talk for about 10 minutes here, because we got another session at 10:30. Maybe we've talked mostly obviously about energy and sustainability here, but I think we really wanted to get into benchmarks more broadly as a way of talking about progress and measuring progress. So from McKinsey's perspective, I know you guys look at benchmarks from a number of topics. Could you give us some insights, maybe Nemanja, starting with you, about what you have learned from benchmarks, doing it so far, and how they can be applied to energy?
Yep, maybe first comment just very broadly, I think benchmarks are, I would say, extremely important for the discussions that industry is having or we are having with the operators. They help us structure the discussion around certain KPIs that are typically widely accepted by the industry. They help you prioritize the areas that are calling for attention, be it for good or bad. And then they can help you set a top-down target or aspiration for going forward. I would say benchmark is typically a starter for the communication to inspire better being for the operators. I've never had a conversation with a client where we would see the benchmark, we would see the outliers like you had in the energy benchmarks, and that someone would say, oh, can you tell me more about the worst guy in the benchmark? Never happened. It's always like, who are these guys that are the best? Is this calibrated the right way? And then afterwards, how can we be better?
Yeah. Great. Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, so especially in energy, I think this benchmark is really important. And it's a bit like, I step on the scale every day and I know my weight roughly, but it's still good to see if it's going up or down. And I think especially, sorry. Yeah, I always hope it's going down. There's another 4K to go, but still, you have a feeling for it. But in the end, getting it factual is actually quite important because it motivates more. And I think that's the feeling often with my clients that say, getting it into a number, is it 10% too much, 15%? Did I gain a kilo or 2 kilos? It's a bit different than what you're going to do the next days. And especially in energy, where I think we're all here together want to make it better, because there is, of course, a bit of a competitive position with the lowest cost, but there's also a lot of societal benefits. So in my mind, especially on energy, we should be quite open to say, hey, this is what we're doing, and therefore the whole industry can benefit from it. There's some areas where it's super competitive and we need to be quite careful, but especially in these areas around sustainability, we can learn from each other, we can inspire, and we can make it better. So therefore, we're actually very excited to actually benchmark these kind of things, because we should be open and getting a little bit of fact, hey, I'm 15% worse or I'm 5% better, gives you that real feeling on urgency, and it can help steady your organization. And then with Nemanja, it's typically the start of a journey. It's never the solution. The benchmark just gives you a direction and aspiration. Then the hard works of making things happen start.
Nemanja, I'm going to come back to something you said. So we're interested in how your experience of organizations using the results of the benchmark internally to generate positive impact. Can you speak about how the sort of best practice, the channels about how they get internal change through the clients you've worked with in the past on any benchmark topics, when they see the results, how they filter those through to actual change within an organization?
Well, I would say typically the first reaction is a bit of pushback. Like I would say benchmark is like the bravest friend you have in your crew that would go out and say first what he thinks is right and get the first beating. We can all argue that there is no perfect adjustment to the benchmark, and I think that's also not the point. I think what Ferry said, in the end of the day, what matters is how much can I improve and be better. And you can tell me that I should go 2 days a week in a gym, and I will say, yeah, but why? And you say, because a person of my age typically does that. And I can argue I have more kids or younger kids or longer working hours, but in the end of the day, I need to be better. And I know that there is potential. So then you evolve typically into the discussion. As I said, benchmark identifies the opportunities very quickly and can set some aspiration towards better targets. Typically, you would then go into the areas where you want to drill down a bit more, do more of the bottom-up thinking, where the opportunity is, a diagnostic of the organization itself, recognizing where the areas are for improvement. And most of the people or organizations already have a hint where those could be, at least. And then you go into the action on how to make it better. So thinking what are the initiatives that can actually drive this to a better performance. And like Ferry said, especially on energy, we can also buy green energy and claim that it's greener, but the better world is going to be left behind only if we actually consume less.
Ferry, I guess one other question for you, which is this question of common metrics or common standards. Can you think of other industries besides telecoms where they have had to coalesce or tried to coalesce around a set of common metrics that can be benchmarked over time? And how should we think about that question?
I think one of the previous speaker, I forgot who, said the car industry, of course. The car industry has a very clear algorithm, and you know that some companies try to game them and got big fines for them, but I think they have a real common argument around this is how you measure it, and there's actually laws around how you have to measure it and how much emission you can create. So I think the car industry is really actually a benchmark for us. I think, you know, if we could as an industry say this is the day that costs to produce the energy to produce a gigabit, and this network is less or more efficient, I think it should be quite helpful to have. I think there's others like banking where there's a lot of benchmarks available, and banks are quite open, given they're pretty regional and local often, to benchmark each other. So cost to income ratios of banks are actually quite well understood and very well benchmarked. So I think both banking and for general benchmarks, and I think the car industry is actually, I think for me, the best one in when it comes to, but also the European Union, of course, has this energy labeling for appliances. And again, that's also a great way. Is it an A, a B, a C, a D? And I think a lot of people understand that concept and how much it costs. So I think that's often what I love about the car is it's really clear for people, okay, I can drive further. Well, if I have an A label dryer, how much does it save me? So can we really make it also tangible for consumers to say, hey, if I go to this network and it's an A label, how much better is it and how much do I actually contribute? So because then it becomes tangible for the consumer. Why you might have to pay a little bit more, but it just comes much better, or I pay the same and I really save the planet.
That's good. Well, we got to wrap it up in a minute, but I just want to ask one more question to Nemanja.
again, looking ahead, what would you say is, from your experience in this topic, is the sort of top thing you should think about in terms of refining benchmarks so that they generate the highest level of acceptance among an industry and have the best cut through?
Yeah, I think one of the things, there are a few things that help. One is if the benchmark includes multiple cuts. I think your colleague mentioned there is no one way you measure the energy efficiency, and that's very important. You can do it by gigabyte, by site, by subscriber. Only that way you can easily identify where the outlying driver for you is. So I think that's one thing that's important. It's important to have, or it helps to have wider standardization. So I think it's good. I mean, when you go and talk about the benchmarks, you need to adjust it for a different client. But if you have public reports like what you're doing, then it sets the initial stage, which is not operator specific, but very public for the industry. And that's very important. It's very important to track the evolution over time. And I do believe, I mean, I think industry have seen a lot of top line and cost benchmarks. I do believe that there needs to be more KPIs that are sustainability specific to track going forward.
Great, okay. Well, I really appreciate you guys coming out today and sharing your thoughts with us. And thank you all very much for devoting some of your time to come join us today. I hope you've gotten a lot out of it and found it useful. As I said, the report is available to download. I think we've got a QR code here, if I'm not mistaken, to download that. So please do that. And as I say, one last time, thank you to our panelists for joining us today, and I hope you have a great rest of the event.
And also, thank you for GSMA doing this, because to be honest, it was on the agenda, everybody talks about, but now having a great report with statistics really can drive you forward, to download it and look at the number and say, hey, what can we do? So thank you also as the GSMA to do this.
Thanks very much, everyone.